Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. I'm encouraged by this new polling data coming to us from the animated Harry Enton over at CNN, in the sense that finally the new Marxist Party is embracing their actual philosophy, as opposed to, just a few years ago when you would have new Marxists, the neo-Marxists, suggesting that socialism is not something that they support. Where do you get this idea? We're not Democrats. We're not socialists. We're not Democrat socialists. We're just Democrats. Well, that's all by the boards now. As if Kathy Hochul's genuflection before Zohran Mamdani in New York is not testimony to this. The macro data, not just the anecdotal.
Look at this. Net popularity of socialism among Democrats. You go back to 2010, it was plus 7 points. Look how high it is now, up like a rocket, up to plus 36 points. That's a jump of nearly 30 points on the net popularity scale among Democrats in just 15 years. And I was looking at the polling from New York City, and what you see is the clear plurality of New York City Democrats think the idea of having a socialist mayor is a good idea, matching what we see nationally. The bottom line is socialism isn't a dirty word among Democrats at this particular point. It's actually a word that, when attached, Democrats seem to like it.
Yeah, it's not a dirty word. It's a descriptive word. That's their philosophy. And correspondingly, capitalism, not so much.
Look at this trend. It was plus 8 points in 2010 on the positive side of the ledger. Look at where we are in 2025. Down, falling through the floor at minus 13 points. That's a drop of over 20 points in just 15 years. So we see the exact opposite trend that we see at socialism, which is up and away. What we see with capitalism is down, down, down through the floor.
Yeah, and unsurprisingly, as you embrace the expansion of the state, a repressive state, so you embrace violence as the means to achieve political goals. A YouGov survey out, just building on the Rutgers survey from earlier in the year that found nearly half of self-identified leftists could find at least some justification for assassinating Trump and Musk. The data from FIRE about the acceptance of political violence as the means to silence speakers on campus, to prevent people from attending a speech. Not a majority, but trending. YouGov survey. It's okay to be happy about the death of a political figure they oppose. 34% of leftists say yes. Trending. By extension, 7% of conservatives do. Proportionality. 34-7. Factor of 5. Agree violence can be used can be justified to achieve political goals. 42% of liberals, yes. 9% of conservatives. 42% of leftists. I shouldn't say liberals because there's nothing liberal about them, small L. For more on this, please be joined by our friend Stephen Moore, economist, author of The Trump Economic Miracle and the Plan to Unleash Prosperity, again, co-authored with Art Laffer. Steve, thanks for being with us as always.
Hi, Dan. I vote for socialism. I want everybody to have an equal share, and it's worked so well everywhere. Just look at Cuba.
Well, look at any totalitarian. Well, frankly, even look at Western Europe. You don't even have to go full totalitarian, although they're close. Yeah.
Germany is now poorer than Arkansas.
Yeah, we talked about that a couple of weeks ago.
I know. It's
right.
unbelievable. I mean, even the poorest states, Alabama is richer than France. I mean, God, what is going on in Europe? So it's amazing that you've got this, what's the old saying that if you're not a socialist before you're 19, you have no heart, and if you're still a socialist after 19, you have no brain. And boy, is that relevant to today. I mean, look, 15 and 16, 17-year-olds, they're going to have these utopian visions, but then you're supposed to wake up and you're supposed to face the real world. And it's troubling to me that so many young people have not done that.
Well, I'll tell you what, something else too. I mean, you can't look at this without the context of the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the political violence piece of this. And so this is when I see data like that, like Harry Enton described about socialism, that's a shot, not just we want higher marginal tax rates. That's all the political violence piece. And it's very interesting. Now that the party is completely folded into Mamdani as the next mayor of New York, that party. Of course it should. It's a neo-Marxist party. He's a Marxist. Perfect. It's a perfect fit.
And by the way, it's worked so well in Chicago that why not try it in New York, right?
Right.
Brandon Johnson's been a great mayor. Yeah, fantastic.
But the interesting thing is he won't return the favor and endorse Hochul. That's what's really interesting. So get ready to see a lot of Louis Philippe II's. The financier, one of the financiers of the French Revolution, who ultimately was felled by those people he financed, because don't think they won't come for you, Kathy Hochul.
Well, that's a great point. And I mean, it's not just New York City, but it's also obviously Chicago with Brandon Johnson. And then you've got Minneapolis that's now looking at, putting in a socialist mayor in Seattle.
Well, they already have one, Jacob Fry.
Yeah, all of these that are quote progressive are driving out businesses now. Microsoft and all these major tech companies are moving out of Seattle because they can't, because of the crime and the taxes and the horrible schools, et cetera, et cetera. It's a tragedy. I love America's cities. I mean, we have great cities. I love Chicago. I love New York. I love Los Angeles. I love San Francisco. And to go to these cities now and see what the wreckage of this kind of socialist philosophy is heartbreaking, actually. And, by the way, if Mamdani is elected mayor, and I think he will probably win, then Wall Street, I'm going to make a prediction to you, Dan, Wall Street will no longer be located in Manhattan. It's already been moving out, but it will move to Dallas, or it'll move to Houston, or it'll move to Tampa or Miami. You're going to run out of rich people, folks, to soak.
Talking a little bit of dollars and cents economics, particularly trade.
Yeah.
What do you hear? We keep hearing these things about a major deal. I thought we had a framework, and now we're maybe, I guess, details on the framework of a deal between the United States and China.
I've been hearing that for 6 months. Yeah. And, we got a big deal right around the corner. I don't have a clue what's in that deal. China needs to trade with the United States, so Trump is playing that card. But the problem is the Chinese are like the old Soviet Union in the sense that they'll say anything and they'll sign anything. It's just a question of whether they actually abide by the rules. I'm very skeptical of that. But where we are with this deal with China, I don't know, because Trump announced a deal back in March, didn't he?
The framework of a deal, and then Besant.
Framework of the deal.
Yes, right. Yeah. So you got the terminology. But then Besant was going to fill in the blanks, and actually too. I know there are other things going on, but I mean, Scott Besant has been less high profile in recent weeks than in the first 6 months, where he was sort of riding point along with the Commerce Secretary on some of this deal making, and I just wonder if that's an indication things have stalled, or they're just working out some of the particulars to announce those particulars. And if you don't know, I don't know who does.
No, I really don't know. I mean, they have held those cards close to their vest. And so I'm a little I am very hostile to China. I think China is a very dangerous country. I think they're Germany circa 1937. I think we should be very tough on China. I think Trump is exactly right about that. It's just a question of whether you could actually get them to abide by a deal. We will see. But China has its own problems, by the way. I mean, China has a lot of economic problems themselves. And if they can't sell, to our $20 trillion consumer economy here, they're going to go into a depression. So Trump is playing that, quote, Trump card, I think. But we'll see. I mean, I'm skeptical. It's one thing to get a deal with the UK, which is great, fantastic. I think that Trump is over there now in jolly old England. It's one thing to get the Europeans, signed on the dotted line, but China's another kettle of fish.
On the good news front, I read this in your always informative Unleash Prosperity hotline, the newsletter. New census data on median household income by race puts sort of a damper on some of the accusations of systemic racism in this country. Yeah.
So it's actually a good news and bad news story. So do you want the good news or the bad news first?
Well, I know what the bad news is. Give us the good news.
Well, the good news is incomes are rising. They've been rising pretty steadily for since the Reagan era. The average, there's all this talk about the shrinking middle class and blah blah blah. Well, the middle class is about 40% richer today than it was back in 1980. So been steady gains. Now, do you know, Dan? You probably know this because you read the item. What ethnic group has the highest median family income?
Well, as a category, we have to get into the various ethnicities, but it would be Asian families.
Yeah, and this is an amazing statistic because Asians now, their average median income is $120,000 a year. That's a lot. That's a pretty high income as a median. So Asians now have incomes that are 40% higher than whites. Now think about that, Dan. I mean, how could that possibly be true? Because we're a systemically racist country.
Well, we're white supremacists, too, on top of it. We're not just racist, but we're white supremacists. Yeah.
Exactly. So how could it be that the country of white supremacy has people with brown skin who are making more than white skin?
We're just not very good at that white supremacy thing, apparently. Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, Asians are an incredible success story. And most Asians have only been in the country for one or two generations. That's the most amazing thing. Then you have the story of whites. Whites are doing fine, steady gains in income, median income. The other good news story is Hispanics. Hispanics are doing really well. The average income of an Hispanic family is now up to, I think, $72,000. That's way, way above what they were making in Mexico or El Salvador or the countries they came from. They are climbing the economic ladder of success. Hispanics are a success story. That's the really good news. The bad news is the one group that is falling further and further behind is Black Americans. And Black Americans actually have lost ground, both in terms of, as a share of the total income, but also just their median income has been falling. And that is a tragedy. That's an American tragedy. And here's the most, now you could say, well, that's because of racism. And look, there is racism in the country. I'm not denying that. But Thomas Sowell told us this 30, 40 years ago, the great economist, and it's true today as when he pointed this out 30 years ago. Immigrants who come to the United States from Africa have higher incomes than blacks that are born here.
Right. Yes.
So that's a problem. I mean, what's going on here? Is it? And now, look, I think there are a bunch of factors here, and we just have to be. Racism. Steve Moore is a racist. No, let's just basically tell the truth about it. When you only have half of black children that are growing up in a household with a father, that's a big problem. That is a big problem.
Half. It's more than that. It's more like 75.
In some cities, it's probably 70%.
75, 80%.
Yeah. Now, then you have the problem of the schools. I mean, the schools are in Chicago and in New York, and the inner city schools are a disgrace. And we spend a lot of money, and we're not getting our money's worth. So that's another thing that has to be fixed. All of these things. And then, I'll tell you another tragic, just looking up these numbers, that the average young black male has a 1 in 4 chance of ending up in jail. Mm-hmm. I mean, those are terrible, terrible, heartbreaking statistics. And just for the leftists to say, racism, it's racism. No, we have to really diagnose what's going on here and figure out what the problem is, because we want a society, as Larry Kudlow would say, a rising tide that lifts all boats, and it's not working right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think in point of fact, we have a pretty good idea of what the problem is, and you just pointed out two of the fundamental problems. It's just a question of political will to do something different in these big cities. And frankly, even in these blue states in general, like Illinois, we know so well, mean, that's what.
Who was
that's what
Dan?
this
Who was
is.
the famous senator? I'm blanking. Oh, Moynihan, Pat Moynihan.
Yeah, right.
He wrote a very, very famous essay. This is the 60-year anniversary of his famous essay called "Defining Deviance Downward." Remember that it was very famous, and he said we are destroying the black family with welfare. And by the way, Walter Williams used to say that all the time. My good friend Walter Williams used to say, the black family survived slavery. It's survived Jim Crow laws. It survived segregation. The one thing the black family could not survive was the welfare state.
Yeah. That's the truth. Before we let you go, it looks like just on another topic, since this has been so central to our discussion about the macro economy. Senate Republicans are going to confirm Stephen Moran for the Federal Reserve Board as early as next week.
Yep.
And so then what happens?
Well, first of all, we are going to get a Fed rate cut, quarter basis point. Moran, I know Moran a little bit. He believes in the idea of a weak dollar. He thinks a weak dollar will be good for America because it'll make our exports cheaper, and therefore we'll sell more abroad. It'll make imports more expensive, and therefore we'll reduce our trade deficit. I don't believe that at all. I believe that we should have a strong, stable dollar. I think that the Fed should be defending the dollar. We need to continue to be the world reserve currency. And this idea that we can solve our problems by just printing more money and cheapening the dollar, I don't agree with that kind of philosophy at all.
Nope, me neither. But we're getting a rate cut this week. You said quarter point. Yeah,
probably quarter, and it's fine. I mean, look, Washington and Wall Street obsess way too much about the power of the Fed, like it's the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. He just pushes a button and the economy does this or that. And the truth is the Fed doesn't have all that much control. They control the very, very short-term rates. They don't control mortgage rates. They don't control the 10-year Treasury bill. Mm-hmm. So, here's my line on this, and Dan, if you want to cut something in Washington, don't cut the interest rates. Cut the damn overspending in Washington.
There's an idea, Stephen. Even Joe Manchin conceded that point after voting for so much of that spending for so many years.
Oh, amazing!
How about that?
His confession. He said, "Gee, all Joe Biden ever wanted to do was send checks to people."
Is that right?
He did it.
You don't say, Joe Manchin. Huh? Yeah, how about that? Stephen Moore, economist, author of The Trump Economic Miracle. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Dan. Have a great week. Bye.
You too, and Steve joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. On AM 560. The Answer. Don't miss In Grace with Pastor Jim Scudder Jr. Now heard on Sunday mornings